Well, been a long time, my friends. Full disclosure, I've been having some life events going on, so that's kind of why I haven't uploaded. I was working on my 100 subscriber special, but my computer's dead. Like dead, cadaverific, ex-computer. So I really can't work on that till I get a new one. With other expenses, I'm moving soon, so might be a while before I do get that, so it might be a while for that special. Might turn into the 1,000 sub special by the time I get there. On a bit more of a happier note, I am excited to announce that I will be acting in a theater show this coming fall. It'll be in the middle of September for the Philadelphia Fringe Festival. My theater company, Forgotten Lore Theater, which with affiliation with technically Lone Brick, it's kind of one and the same. We are working on an adaptation of Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream. Of course, I have been cast as the character Bottom. If you don't know, he's the one who is the Athenian actor who gets turned into a donkey and then proceeds to have a relationship with Titania, the fairy queen. Admittedly, Midsummer is not my favorite Shakespeare piece. I'm much more a fan of the tragedies than the comedies. But the process so far has been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed going through it and working on the character, and I think it's coming together. So it's still not my favorite Shakespeare play, but it's slowly growing on me as we go through the process. Number of shows will be limited. I think we might only have it for a full, like a 4-day weekend, so Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Dates are not finalized yet. Tickets are not on sale. I'll, of course, be posting that and making notes when we do go ahead and get there. It won't be quite as restrictive as last year's show, only because the COVID guidelines are slowly being lifted. Most of us, if not all of us, have been fully vaccinated or will be fully vaccinated by that point. So we're hoping to have just like a more traditional, regular theater show with some elements of immersion like we've done before. So we might be working at the cemetery again. It's possible we could be working at an arboretum to get that feeling of being in the woods during the events. So that's been very exciting. That's been a lot of fun so far, and I'm happy to be working on a show again. Now that we're done with the boring life updates, I kind of wanted to get into the meat of the video here. So while getting ready for doing Shakespeare, admittedly I haven't done Shakespeare for a while. The last time that I was in a Shakespeare play was in 2016. The fall of 2016, my theater company at college, for a children's theater, we had done an adaptation of Macbeth. I, of course, was the titular Scottish Mad King Macbeth, which was awesome. Personally, I think it's one of my best performances. And I kind of got thinking that, hey, I'm not really exposed to a lot of Shakespeare work. So I went out to a Barnes & Noble, and I had purchased a few different Shakespeare works to kind of get better exposed to it. I purchased Titus Andronicus, which is actually Shakespeare's first tragedy, and I believe his first play as well. Haven't gotten around to it yet. But from what I can gather, it's kind of like you have to go in the mindset where it is his first play. I have gotten King Lear, which is easily becoming one of my favorites. King Lear is about a very old king who is dividing his kingdom amongst his 3 daughters, 2 of which kind of use deception and trickery to get it from him, pretending that they love him, leading him to spurn the 3rd daughter, which actually does love him. And by the end of it, he goes insane. It's an excellent play. Kind of tying to what I'm talking about this video, I would love to play King Lear someday. I hate to say it, but I'm a little on the young side. And King Lear, you have to be an older person, or at least I would need a crap load of makeup. But we can chalk that up on the list of theater roles that I might like someday. I've also gotten a lovely copy of Richard III. If I'm being honest, I'm not particularly fond of the histories of Shakespeare. I only have 2, one of which is Richard III, the other we'll go over in a moment. But Richard III, to me, is probably one of the better of the histories, only because it kind of acts more like a tragedy with how, like, evil King Richard was and how he, like, kills his nephews. It's that king. It's the king who killed his nephews in that dark tower to essentially force himself to become king. And, of course, it does have that amazing final line of a horse, my kingdom for a horse, read before Richard is killed by, I believe, who would be Henry VII, if we're talking historically. It's a long beast of a play. I mean, trying to do this would be a lot of work. There's another character that I would like. It kind of feels similar to Macbeth in a way, where King Richard is very evil and treacherous, and it's just kind of this like downward spiral of like, now I'm king, and then everything blows out of proportion, and mistakes that he made and people he's killed. It's a very interesting history, which is why I first was interested in it, and why I've kind of been enjoying it more than I would have expected. But that's another character I would love to play King Richard someday. The fourth book that I've acquired is another history, and it's one that not a lot of people know about. Henry VIII. Henry VIII is a well-known king of England, mainly for the the wife killings. Now, from what I've gathered from Henry VIII, I haven't finished it as of yet, but it's more so of his early life, and I believe the birth of Elizabeth, like up to the birth of Elizabeth, I think is where it ends, historically speaking. So we kind of get to it before he goes through the whole, killing all of his wives and executing people and being evil and mad and getting gout and all of that. It doesn't get into the most interesting bits of Henry VIII. And if I'm not mistaken, Elizabeth would have been queen at the time of this production. So to me, it kind of seems that Shakespeare was like, well, let me do a history of your father, and didn't show the nasty bits of who Henry VIII was. I still like it only for my fascination with Henry VIII. I mean, he is one of my favorite evil, mad historical figures. I just think he's an interesting person. So it's kind of interesting to see a medium where he's not depicted in the worst light possible, where he's not shown as this disgusting, vile, horny, bloated man, which he was historically speaking. I think I might like to play Henry VIII someday. Notably, it's a lot thinner than Richard III. Again, doesn't go through the full history. But just for playing the character on stage, I think would be fantastic. And I do have a fascination with Henry VIII, so it kind of seems right up my alley. So that's it for the new Shakespeare books that I bought and I'm currently going through as we go through this process. But I do have a small number of books that I've just kind of accumulated over time. So I just kind of want to briefly talk about those as well. Personally speaking, my favorite, one of my favorites, if not my favorite Shakespeare play is Julius Caesar, The Tragedy of Julius Caesar. When I was in high school, we had read this play and I had performed pieces of it as Cassius, which was a character that I just really, really resonated with. Cassius kind of reminds me of Iago from Othello, but Cassius is more closer to a friend of Brutus rather than having malicious intent to bring Brutus's downfall. The Julius Caesar is not necessarily a history. There is a historical event of the assassination of Julius Caesar, and it details two of the betrayers, Brutus and Cassius, which of course has the famous line, "Et tu, Brute," and you, Brutus. But it's not. It's really more of a dramatization of it, not really a history of it. So it's not quite as dry as some of the histories can be. We did this in high school. I played a mean Cassius with a very good friend of mine who played a very mean Brutus. Admittedly so, when we were in high school, we tried doing a musical parody of it called The Comedy of Julius Caesar. We never were able to pull it off. Admittedly, it was pretty bad looking back. You look at it, it's like, yeah, this is what something with two stupid high schoolers would make. No insult to my friend, of course, but it's just kind of a funny story. But I really do think that I would like to pick up Julius Caesar again, if ever given the chance. Personally, I don't think I would like to play Brutus in this one. I kind of tend for Shakespeare to not always want the lead role, unless it's particularly compelling. In this case, I think I'd like to play Cassius again. If I didn't play Cassius, I think another character I'd like might be Mark Antony, for his historical significance, or maybe Octavius. But yeah, Cassius would definitely be the role that I would like to reprise for doing Julius Caesar. And to be clear, the tragedy, not the comedy. If by some miracle my friend and I ever got together again and we had the resources to do a comedy, that would be awesome. But nothing on that for the time being. So now we talk about the titular play, Macbeth. I actually never read Macbeth when I was in high school. It wasn't until later that I was exposed to it, and I kind of fell in love with it. Macbeth is it's an amazing story about an evil a man who falls from grace, giving into his dark desires with temptation to assassinate a king and become king himself. And of course, it ends with his death, since it is one of Shakespeare's tragedies. I do think that I would like to go ahead and reprise my role of Macbeth if given the opportunity. I think there was certainly just this venom that I was able to portray as the character that was good. I not to sound full of myself, but it's just one of those performances that stuck with me. A lot of my friends and family that came to see it said that that's one of the best things that I've done so far. So hey, maybe I'll get the opportunity someday. If I didn't have the chance to be Macbeth, I think I'd like to challenge myself with the material and either be Banquo or maybe Macduff, since they're more of like they're more on the good guy side, whereas Macbeth is really kind of the bad guy when you look at the story. So the next Shakespeare play is another one of my favorites. Not really sure if it's my complete favorite, but we have Othello. Othello is the story of a general who is black, who is tricked by an evil man named Iago to believing that his wife is being unfaithful, where he then kills her in his rage. Because, you know, she's begging him, I would never be unfaithful to you. And Othello's like, yes, you were. I know that you were. And so then he kills her. Othello is just one of those plays that I've just been fascinated with as well, kind of similar to Caesar, where it's beautifully written. It's a tragedy as well. I love the characters of both Othello and Iago. If I do have to admit, for obvious reasons, I could never play Othello, which is perfectly fine. I feel that given my history of being naughty Shakespeare boys, I think I could do an excellent job as Iago. I don't find too many people that have read this one. I mean, I had to read it in high school before, and yeah, I've loved it. Before we get to the last Shakespeare play that I own, I just kind of want to briefly talk about the other Shakespeare play that I was in. I forget what year it was. It might have been 2015 or 2014. I was in a production of Romeo and Juliet. No, sadly, I was not the amazing, handsome Juliet. I was cast as Mercutio, which personally, I thought I did a pretty good job with. Mercutio is a lot of fun. He's a lot of very fiery, very funny. Truth be told, if I had the chance to be in Romeo and Juliet again, I think I would rather prefer to be Tybalt. Like I said, it's always kind of fun being the bad guy in Shakespearean stories. I think I'd like to be Tybalt if I had the chance to do Romeo and Juliet again. Would I be Romeo? I mean, I would. I don't think my style or passion lies with being that character in particular. I think I wouldn't mind reprising Mercutio again. But yeah, Tybalt would definitely be the one that I'd like to pick for Romeo and Juliet if given the option. So the last Shakespeare play that we'll discuss today is one that I do own. I've never acted in, but a lot of people are familiar with. Hamlet. Hamlet, I think, gets a bad rap because I think we read it too young. We read Hamlet for the first time, and I think our initial reactions are that Hamlet is this angsty teenager that can't make a decision. And I think that what makes Hamlet an interesting character is not his lack of action during the entirety of the play. What I think it's this dichotomy of damned if I do, damned if I don't. If he does take revenge and commits murder to avenge his father's death from the king who had killed him to become king, he is damned, right? He'll be damned to hell for committing murder, which is like, one of God's sins. If he doesn't do it, well, he'll be damned as well because he won't honor the final wishes of his father, which his father is telling him to avenge me, son, avenge me, take your place as king and defeat your uncle. So I feel like as I've grown older, the story has gotten better for me. Upon glazing through it again and rereading it, I like it more than I did when I was younger. To a angsty teenager, the story of Macbeth, which has a lot of violence and action, seems more appropriate than a show about, a guy just sitting there talking for 3 acts. I think that Hamlet is still an excellent show. If given the opportunity, I'm not sure if I would make a good Hamlet. It's not a character that I have particularly resonated with. So I'm not sure. I mean, like I said, I would always take opportunity when I would get it. But I don't think it's a role that I would initially be going for. If I had to pick, I think I'd like to play Hamlet's uncle, the king who kills the father to become king. I don't know. I kind of like that character. I think I might also like to be Polonius, who Hamlet does kill. Alternatively, though, I think I'd make a good Laertes. He is the son of Polonius, who enacts his revenge on Hamlet for killing his father, and they fight at the end and they die. I mean, everyone dies in Hamlet. Like a lot of people die in Hamlet. But yeah, I think those would be the roles that I would want to go ahead and pick. So this has been a video, just me kind of droning on and on about Shakespeare and roles that I think I might like to do someday. I think I'll do another video or two of these, just talking about theater things that I might like to do at some point in my life, and maybe I'll get there someday and you guys can join me, or maybe I won't, and that's okay too. There's plenty of things for me to do and things to experience, so don't have to scratch everything off that list. So again, until I get a new computer, these will be the types of videos that I'll have to make for a while. I will pick up on the 100 sub or 200 sub or 1,000 sub or whatever it's going to be at this point video. Once we do get there, I'm still not going to tell you what it is though. And yeah, so I'll keep you guys updated on our upcoming theater show, and I'll see you in the next one.